Hey guys, Augiesaint here and welcome to the channel. I want to share with you guys my updated shred build guide. So 2.0, I like to call this the super shredder. You know, think Ninja Turtles and then like Ninja Shredder with the grater in his hand just shredding cheese, and then you picture you're the cheese grater and the enemies are the cheese, and then that's this build pretty much. So you just, you cheddar cheese everything. It's really fun, it's really fast, and it can push high nightmare dungeons. I'm pretty sure it has the potential to do a nightmare dungeon 100 if you can get blessed with the loot cards to actually get damage reduction on your gear, as I just cannot get any good damage reduction rolls and armor rolls on my gear. So I guess they just really want me to speed farm, and thus the highest I could do on this so far was a 74 completion. But then I went into an 86 nightmare dungeon and I could actually kill everything in the 86 nightmare dungeon, no problem. My damage was insane. I could easily kill like one-shot elite packs, but my survivability was really lacking because of rolls. But it's not the build's fault, it's just my luck with loot. I just couldn't get any good rolls, but I will suggest all the rolls that you guys can hunt for in the build in this video, everything, so you can easily push nightmare tier dungeon 80 plus with this build, no questions asked. But without further ado, let's hop straight into the build guide now, shall we? So the actual build hasn't really changed that much. The Paragon tree got a massive rework, but the build itself has stayed relatively the same with a few points changed here and there. So we're going Fierce Storm Strike because you will be casting this actually quite often. And then you also do get the damage reduction from it over there. You gain 25% damage reduction for 3 seconds after dealing damage with Storm Strike. Really good. It's also a really good vulnerable application, as usually when you're pushing the higher nightmare tiers, your exploit is not enough to keep your vulnerable up all the time. So having another backup as well as the damage reduction is really nice on Storm Strike, as well as the hitting multiple enemies. So really good there. Then we pick up 1 in Heart of the Wild and 3 in Wild Impulses for the increased damage there. The spirit cost doesn't really matter so much for the build. And then obviously we're picking up Shred, all the points we can into Shred, as this is a Shredder build. So Shred with Primal Shred, Shred's second and third attack also perform a dash. In addition, Shred's critical strike damage is increased by 30%. So it is a critical strike damage build based on Shred. And then we lose 1 point in this over here. Usually we take 3, but since we're trying to push higher tiers, we can use those points elsewhere. So 3 Interpreted Instincts, and this is way more important now since we do actually drop the Waxing Gibeus, the axe that actually gives you the guaranteed crit chance. So we went on 3 over there, we went 2 over there. Then we come on down, pick 1 point in Cyclone Armor, Enhanced and Preserving, just for more damage reduction. It's a really good skill, Cyclone Armor, one of my favorites. Blood Hell, really good for this build, you kind of need it. As then we use this, the kills reduce the cooldown of Blood Hell by 1 second, so you can have it up pretty much all the time. And then Preserving Blood Hell will increase your attack speed by 15% for 4 seconds, massive damage boost, as this build really scales off attack speed. As well as this proccing your Vigilance, you gain 15% damage reduction for 4 seconds after using a defensive skill. So the synergy between Vigilance and actually using Blood Howl often because of the cooldown reduction over there is really good to proc that over there, so you always have it up. As well as using Cyclone Armor to then knock back enemies, and then working with our Blurred Shred thing where you like teleport to the targets and you deal crazy amounts of damage. That's going to make that easier to achieve as well. So really good. And the way that I have so many points on all of these skills over here is because I do have defensive to my neck piece, my amulet. And then moving on, we skip companions. Unfortunately, one day we'll have companions, but no, today is not the day. So we're moving on to the raw skills. Pick up Hurricane, Enhanced Hurricane, and Savage Hurricane, just for more survivability. And then yeah, is where we actually put the skills that we picked up from taking 1 out of Digigate. Yeah, we put it into Elemental Exposure. So your Storm skills have up to a 10% chance to make enemies vulnerable for 3 seconds. You have this up quite often, your Hurricane. And obviously Cyclone has the small chance of doing it on the knockback as well. But then Endless Tempest, increase the duration of Hurricane, and Cataclysm by 15%. We're really just using it for the Hurricane increase. So Hurricane should be up quite often. Then we come on down to 1 point in Neurotoxin to unlock Toxic Claws and Envenom. This is probably the strongest thing on Druid right now, and you should always go for that on your neck piece if you are using it in your build, which you should be as well. So we got 3 on our neck piece over there, Envenom maxed out. Then we're going with Grizzly Rage, Prime, and Supreme Grizzly Rage, as that's our way of Unstoppable. And then yeah, on the last one, it's really, if you're speed farming in that, you could stick with Lupine Ferocity, but what you should actually be doing, Ursine Strength is more more damage overall, because it just gives you, you see the first part, you gain 20% additional max life while in werebear for 3 seconds and after leaving werebear form. So we won't be getting that obviously because we are a werewolf. But while healthy, so above 80% health, you deal 30% increased damage. So that is really good to use over there. And in the footage earlier on in the video, I was actually using Lupine Ferocity. I hadn't switched over to Augiesaint Strength yet. So that is there. That shows I could do even more damage than what I was. It's just, yeah, I was just speed farming with that on anyway. But you should be using Augiesaint Strength. Massive damage over there. I mean 30%. And then that scales multiplicatively as well. So while healthy, deal 30% X increased damage. Really good. That is the skill tree. The Paragon is quite changed up. And this was highly inspired by Karth's video. Karth did one on Shred, his Shred Druid update as well. And the way that to set up the Paragon is like so perfect, I can't really change it or make it any better. I did change around 2 points. So this is my version of the Paragon tree. This will all be down below in the description for you guys to follow on Mobilytics, and in my Discord I'll have the link as well, so check that all out in the description. But let's go on up. So you just go on all the way up there, pick up Prime, we come up, we get to the first one, Territorial, damage to close enemies and damage reduction from close enemies, and then we pick up all the decks we can within range. Grab the max life and all the armor nodes and max life as well, because this is a nightmare high nightmare dungeon in-game build, so you want to get some survivability. You need it in your build. And then we move up to Empower, work our way up, and you work your way into the Heightened Malice board. Obviously, if you are leveling, then this is probably not the best way to go. If you are leveling, you kind of want to go for Lust of Carnage as fast as you can. So you could even switch this around and put the Lust of Carnage board in first, and then work your way to Heightened Malice. But again, this is not a leveling build, so if you are watching this, you're probably high up anyway. And you should be able to at least get these first 2 boards. So that's how we're going to do that. So we go up, grab Heightened Malice on the right there with these poison nodes around here. Poison resilience, we're only really getting that for the maximum life. I mean, the poison resistance is cool, but it's really just for the maximum life, and those you got to pick up to get to them. So kind of wasted on the poison resistance, but there's nothing better to do with the points. Then we go up over here, damage to poisoned enemies. Damage to poisoned enemies, I mean, it's a no-brainer. We do increased damage to poison enemies. The increased poison damage itself doesn't really matter that much because not much of our damage is poison damage, but we deal more damage to poison enemies. That's why it's really important. And again, some more damage over there. Then we work our way up and around. Damage reduction from enemies that are poisoned. Very good. All the way around to damage to poison enemies. Again, increasing your damage to poison enemies. And then we go up into this tree, but we'll get back to that in a second. The glyph we take here is Fang and Claw to grant 150% bonus to all magic nodes within range. That's all these blue ones. Really nice on that. And then obviously we are grabbing the 40 willpower as well. While in Werewolf or Weber form, close enemies take 12% increased damage from you, as well as all the other benefits. So then we come up into the Thunderstruck tree, and I believe this is how it spawns. We just leave it as it is. And then we work our way over to the right for Hubris. Damage reduction from vulnerable enemies. We grab Werewolf over here, getting as many willpower nodes as we can. And then the Storm skill damage over there for the increased willpower as well, giving us more damage while in Werewolf, because this will take the willpower out of that node. So really important over there. We come on to the right, lastly grabbing the Survival Instincts tree. And we're only really grabbing this little yellow node there, damage reduction while fortified. And just some more fortified gen and damage reduction while fortified. As I said before, you need a lot of defense to survive, as the build just does crazy amounts of damage anyway. So come on back down, and we're going to the left for Lust of Carnage. You want to beeline down to the Wild Skull for attack speed and maximum spirit. And this is why you want to try and get all stats on your gear. Once I show you guys the gear in a second, I will talk to you about that. But all stats is really important to then come closer to your dexterity, as well as the willpower and just the intellect on some of these other nodes as well. So Wild Skull over there, attack speed, maximum spirit. We come on up to regenerative for the healing received, but mainly for the willpower again. I mean, the healing received is nice because that will increase your lifesteal, and you do quite a bit of lifesteal with a passive we have going. And then we take Undaunted, 97% damage while fortified, really, really good. And you gain up to 10% damage reduction the more fortify you have, really good. Grab that, and then all the intellect nodes around it. We go on down to Lust for Carnage. This is how you pretty much keep your spirit up in the build. Really important. We come on all the way up, and then we attach the Constricting Tendrils board. and you come on over to the left, courage, maximum life, and willpower again. And in this one we'll be putting exploit, as there's a lot of dex nodes within range. There's 2 actually blue ones over there, which are 7, so they give you a lot more. 38% vulnerable damage, and that's its own modifier there, bucket, so it's really good. Then we move on up to the last tree, ancestral guidance. After spending 75 spirit, you deal 30% increased damage for 5 seconds, really good. And then grabbing maximum spirit and spirit on kill. I don't think we'll ever get that extra maximum spirit, but this point is worth picking up, and then just getting the max spirit and the spirit on kill, as well as this max spirit over there. So that is it for the Paragon tree, quite a lengthy one there. And now let's actually have a look at the armor. So yet again, you need Tempest Roar to make this work. I believe you could even do it without Tempest Roar. In my last video with the Shred, the first one, that's like more of a speed variant. You could use something else. You don't need the Tempest Roar, but for this build, we're going to base it on the Tempest Roar and just build everything around it. So this is an endgame High Nightmare Dungeon pushing version. You need Tempest Roar. Simple. And then we get the chase piece over here. And we've got the gain damage reduction while shapeshifted into werewolf, or you could use the other aspect where when you basic attack you gain, I believe it's like 6% damage reduction or armor stacking or something like that, but it's the basic skills one, gives you armor or damage reduction. I can't remember the exact name of it. I did actually play around with it a little bit, since we do actually storm strike quite often while I weave it in between my forms. When I'm hitting stuff, I want to shred them a couple of times, and then I storm strike to apply the damage reduction for 3 seconds. So that will just give you even more damage reduction on that. I believe that would possibly be stronger, and I actually might end up using that. So that is what we'll be going for. And then rolls is really important. You want to get damage reduction, as much damage reduction as you can, and total armor. That damage reduction from distant enemies, I really wish it rolled over to close enemies, because that would be ideal. So total armor, damage reduction while fortified, and damage reduction from close, and then maximum life, because the more life you have, the more you heal, with how the build works with the massive amounts of lifesteal we have. And then moving on down to our gloves, attack speed, really important, and then crit strike is probably the most important thing. Well, actually ranks to shred is the most important, and then crit strike would be your second most important, because we do lose the waxing gibbous, so you want to stack as much crit as you can. And then this is why I go for all stats here, as I was saying in the Paragon tree, where I like to get enough all stats to then cover the dexterity, the willpower, and the instance. We are using a lot of nodes that we'll be using backup nodes, but all stats or willpower, whichever one comes first. Willpower will obviously be more damage, but all stats will help you unlock those nodes a lot easier. And then the aspect we're using on there is wild dashing. Shred seeks out nearby poison enemies, instantly dealing 100% of the poisoning damage to them. So that's just nice little power boost there. When as soon as you shred enemies and they get the poison, kind of got to run back a little bit and then jump back to them to then proc that and just do a lot of damage. And then for your pants, you want to get over here again as much damage reduction as you can. So damage reduction from close, maximum life, and then damage reduction from enemies that are poisoned or increased while fortified. So my pants are actually pretty decent. The only thing that really I'm missing out on is that chest piece. I'm missing a whole damage reduction line, as more than often the enemies are close, because I mean I'm literally teleporting on top of them, so I'm missing that whole damage reduction over there. But you want to go for all the damage reduction you can on your chest and your pants, and then the disobedience is the aspect you'll be using there, really strong. And then on my boots, again, I'm missing multiple damage reductions on the boots. You can get damage reduction while fortified and from poison enemies, so I'm missing 2 rolls of damage reduction on my boots. But I do have all stats, willpower, really good, spirit cost reduction is good as well. But my boots are actually complete garbage for this build. You really want to get movement speed, willpower, or all stats, and then those 2 damage reduction that I said before. So damage reduction from poisoned or while fortified is what you'll be looking for on your boots. And then while unstoppable and for 4 seconds after, you gain 22% movement speed, and you can move freely through enemies. This is really nice just to help it when you're trying to shred and you're trying to move back and shred on top of them. So you can actually just move through enemies without having to, you know, get stuck on enemies or something like that. So really nice, the Ghost Walker aspect on there. But I really need to replace these as fast as I can. And moving on to the axe. Again, this rolls could have been better. I mean, the ultimate skill damage is whatever. I really wish that could have rolled something else. So let's go over it. You want to really focus on critical strike damage and vulnerable damage. Probably the most important 2 skills on the axe. And then core skill damage and close or damage to close enemies. Those are probably the next 2 best options. So definitely not ultimate skill damage. And the aspect we'll be using on here is your core skills deal up to 34% increased damage based on the amount of fortify. Really good on that aspect over there. And then for your offhand, again, I'm missing a damage reduction roll on this. The resource generation should be damage reduction while fortified yet again. So I'm missing more damage reduction over there. But then the other rolls are perfect. Cooldown reduction, you want to have that as high as you can. Damage reduction from enemies that are poisoned, yet again, 2 damage reductions. And critical strike chance is maxed out. Really good totem, minus the resource generation. And the aspect is your critical strikes with core skills increase your attack speed by set amount. Really good as well. And for the rings, my rings rolled actually pretty badly. I mean, they're not terrible. They're good for pretty much every other build. Except over here, critical strike damage, since we're scaling with the Grizzly Rage and everything, doesn't scale. I mean, it scales like loses a lot of its potential in this build. So that critical strike damage we could have as lucky hit, which will help a lot more to proc other things, especially our passives. So the ideal ring would be vulnerable damage, crit strike chance, maximum life, and lucky hit. So this one was close. I mean, this is really good for any other build, but the crit strike damage over here would be better as lucky hit, but it is what it is. We'll see how it goes. And then anyway, the duration of Grizzly Rage is increased by 5 seconds. Try and get a max roll on this, as it does help a lot. And critical strikes with while Grizzly Rage is active increases your critical strike damage by 10% for the duration. That's why critical strike damage is not as important, because it stacks through the roof with this aspect. Another one that you really need on the build. And moving up, while Grizzly Rage is now shapeshifts you into a dire werewolf. As a dire werewolf, you gain movement speed, and instead of damage reduction, you gain spirit cost reduction. In addition, kills heal you for 10% of your maximum life. They're really good on the healing. That's why the more maximum life you have, the more that's going to heal, because you'll have more maximum life. Pretty simple. Again, the ring is missing lucky hit chance, but it is what it is. And then moving up to the amulet. Now, yeah, the most important things would be cooldown reduction and ranks of Evenom passive. And then the other two, again, I'm missing 2 damage reduction rolls on these. So damage reduction while fortified or poison. Even total armor would be much better than what I have. And the aspect on this is where most of the damage comes from in the build, as this does actually double dip into your damage multipliers. Really, really insane on this aspect. Critical strikes with shred deal 45% of the damage dealt as lightning damage to the targets and surrounding enemies. So it's really important to try and group up packs, especially if you're fighting an elite and you know there's a couple of like little monsters nearby. Drag the elites over to those little monsters, get them to stack up on each other, and then kill the little monsters. And then the critical strike is going to be doing massive AoE damage to all of them around. You don't need to kill them, you just need critical strikes. So that's why it's so important to stack critical strike chance in the build. But that is it for the aspects and the gear. And then Spirit Boons, last but not least, let's have a look at them. On the deer, we are running damage reduction from elites. And then on the eagle, we run the crit strike chance. Really important to get the crit up. On the wolf, we are running extended duration of ultimate skills by 25%. And then on the last, the snake, we're going to bind with it. We're going to use masochistic for the healing, as well as calm before the storm. Nature magic skills have up to a 10% chance to reduce the cooldown of your ultimate skill by 2 seconds. That's why it's so important to get lucky hit, because it helps proc calm before the storm. And this over here is a nature magic skill, as well as your storm strike, and then your cyclone armor, although this doesn't really proc it that often. Main thing is from hurricane and storm strike, proccing that over there. But that is the build overall. Let me know what you guys think of it, how high you've actually pushed it. If you've managed to get all the damage reduction rolls, I believe you could easily do a 90 plus with this, probably even 100 if you get some good rolls on your gear, and then just play really safe. But that's it for the video. I hope you guys like it. If you do, please drop a like and a sub. It helps me out so much, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Augiesaint out.
Run free and dive into the sky. Hear the